Okay, we are live. Late bedtimes, excessive light exposure, high stimulation, and lack of wind down time are not compatible with wellness. Or are they? Biohackers are finding ways to balance health and have fun. Basically, I want to be healthy, but I don't want to be a total geek and go to bed at 7 o'clock every evening. So, how do I do it and how do we do it? This is Biohacking News. Hello, welcome to Biohacking News. I'm Tony Wright, and before we go any further, please do like and subscribe. I'm going to bring Pavel straight on. Pavel Stuchlik here to help us today be healthy and cool as well. Definitely one of the coolest men I know. How you doing, Pavel?
Doing well. So happy to be here. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for what you're doing. It's so important in today's world to bring this education out to so many.
Well, thank you for what you're doing as well. And I've been to a few of your events, but I spent quite a lot of time thinking about how to put this podcast together and how to introduce my guests. And you're hard to pigeonhole because you've had a professional sporting career, you've had a professional sort of business career, you're into wellness and biohacking, but you're also a DJ. Perhaps you better explain to people exactly what you do in your background.
Well, it's funny. I spent most of my life limiting myself, and I decided to spend the next part of my life unlimiting myself and live a full potential. And it's so funny, right? Because so many people, they talk about different niches and how to be specific and good at one thing, but we have so many good parts of each and every one of us when we start believing in ourselves and when we unlock and unhook from all of the beliefs of others. And so it's funny that you say this, because I've probably lived 5 lives before I was 30. And I've had highs, I had lows, I had successes, I had also many losses. And throughout this process, it started like shaping, like what it's been all driven by questioning. So my superpower is to keep on questioning everything. And anytime somebody tells me something, whatever, it's a new biohack, a new idea, a new strategy, I keep on questioning, what's the motive, what's behind the motive, how is it going to work, and is it not going to work, and is it going to be limited information or limitless? And so to stay on that topic, I continue seeking limitless opportunities, limitless source of information, whatever I'm reading, listening. And with this particular intention set into the world, world gives you a feedback, right? So it's a constant feedback of whatever you're receiving through others, through your situations, through your health, is giving you and showing you a way how you are acting, who you are becoming. And so I like to call this the journey through self-transformation that that we are all in. And in this journey, I've learned a lot. And I've learned that we have it all wrong, the way we are being brought up, the way we're being limited. And I had enough. And so that's what journeyed me into so many different careers, following so many different, teachers and spiritual gurus and healers. I went around the world to hear it from them. And I think, long story kind of short, I've discovered my why, and that is that to unify the world one person at a time through all of these magical tools and all of the ways that we express, as long as we reflect the best of one another instead of the opposite.
Yeah. And I would say for anyone who hasn't been to one of your events, I've been to a couple as part of the Health Optimization Summit, actually. And it's quite hard to explain, but it's so uplifting and such good fun as well. So let me ask you about this top story there, because I sort of feel like this ties in, and it is inspired by a post that Brian Johnson put on Twitter X. And I'm sure you and everyone else listening knows about Brian Johnson. But this is really the topic of today's podcast: how to party and to be into wellness as well, because that is something you're very good at, having a good time, improving yourself, but also being well. So this is what he posted. He said, "Last night I went to a concert. The music was energizing. The setting was beautiful. My friends were great. And I danced, which is my favorite thing to do. This morning I feel pretty wrecked. The data confirmed what I subjectively feel. My restorative sleep dropped by 50%. My resting heart rate was elevated by 10%. My sleep stress was up by 50%. And then he goes on to list exactly what he thinks were the culprits. He went to sleep 2 hours later than normal, excessive light exposure at the concert. The environment was highly stimulating and he didn't have his normal 60-minute wind down. So how do you balance, because you are someone who clearly knows how to have a good time and look after yourself, and you've got a real interest in the music and the music world. How do you balance these two sometimes conflicting factors?
Well, so yes, I have so much to say in this. My whole
Good.
life, I've loved music and I've loved dancing and I've loved, later on, I discovered how to produce music, which for me happened in a dark room. I spent 10 days in darkness when all of these openings start happening for me. And up until that point, I partied the old way, drinking, going out to clubs, not sleeping. And it obviously didn't serve me, right? Like it was fun, it was awesome, but same type of feedback as what Brian Johnson would have. And I don't even think he drinks. I don't know if he drinks or not, but that's obviously a factor, right? If you drink, take drugs on top of everything, it will take you that much further down. Now, when I went into darkroom, I've learned so many things. I mean, I could write a book about 50 days in darkness, because I've spent now total of 50 days in darkroom without any food in the blocks of 10 days over the years.
Wow. Yeah.
And it became my medicine. And I'll tell you why. We live in a really busy world where we're constantly just getting all of these different informations and all of these different drop-ins and what's good, what's bad, and what's socially good, what's socially bad. And because of this, we get confused and we try to be cool. We try to follow the societal norm and all of these things. And so did I. I try to follow the American dream. I moved to America, being from Czech. I wanted to do really well in business before it was the athlete, the high achiever.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I literally had to silence myself and unhook from the world, unhook from all of the different things that I'm working on, to actually hear myself. What is that passion? What is that true purpose? What is that legacy I want to leave behind? And so for me, the passion was always music. And when I got out of the dark room, the direction from the inner guidance was that I got to learn how to produce music, how to DJ, and how to do it different, how to add solfeggio frequencies on a modern beat, which today is what we're producing. But when I got out of there, I went still the club route. I went into the music festivals. I've DJed in some of the major nightclubs. And when I quit drinking alcohol, I looked around myself one night and I was like, what am I doing here? I like it. It doesn't give me joy anymore. I don't have the same feedback, but I love music. Like, what is this? And so that actually inspired me to create a conscious, DJ sets and conscious music environment for people to basically not feel weird that they don't drink, to not feel weird that they cannot socialize a certain way, and also to not do it at midnight. Do it when we wake up or during the evening, so we can still go to sleep. So to answer your question, there is a solution to this, and it is to be the black sheep for a little bit, right, from the main tribe. But there is enough communities, and I can tell you this because we do over 100 events a year on literally every continent besides Antarctica. And so with this data set, I know that the same type of person is everywhere. People that are ready to unite, people that are ready to grow, that are ready to take, life into their own hands. And because of this, it gives me hope. And I see how so many others are being inspired that, dance can be, intentional. Like in our sessions, sometimes we dance for clearing up the past. And so we would give people different thoughts while they're dancing to move through different emotion, because who's to say that meditation, right, has to be just through stillness and silence? There's so many ways how we can access these different brain waves from that overly analyzing thinking beta dominance, right, in the world, aka also fight or flight, right? It leads us into stress because we're constantly just uptight instead of allowing to move the energy through the body, through the emotions. And so, yeah, in our sessions, we now curate a full-blown shows with instrumentalists, sound healers, drummers, singers, but it's sober. But we have for example, methylene blue activation at the beginning. We use different tinctures. So that way, we literally combine biohacking, science, technology, and fun and music.
That is so cool. Yeah, because when I read that post, it was funny, and I actually sent it to some friends of mine who live nearby here in Lagos, Alex and Kirsty from Exhale Coffee, who you may have met before. They were the official coffee of the Health Optimization Summit when you were there. And I sent them that because we've got a series of gigs going on here at the moment. And it's quite a small, little, sleepy little town, really, at the moment. But in the summer, there's a few more people here and they've got some good DJs. And they weren't particularly late nights, but I still felt pretty wrecked the next day. So I so want to come because the events that I've been to of yours have been as part of a bigger sort of festival. I now want to come to one of your dedicated events. And I wonder it'd be quite helpful to sort of know things like, how do you approach it? I know you've recently held one in a castle, for example. Presumably it didn't go on until 5 o'clock in the morning, but you know, everything is a sort of a bit different with what you're doing.
Everything. You got it. So to go back to the darkroom, so all of this actually came out of darkroom. So I've spent last 15 years traveling the world and learning from some of the most sought out teachers, gurus, shamans, tribes. I mean, I literally, whenever somebody said I have an answer to what it feels like to live in a balanced relationships, I would follow it, learn from them. If it was how to heal your physical body, I would follow it, learn from them. And it gave me this beautiful framework, or I call it a system reset toolbox of a tools that have science behind them, but that are easy to use and possible to embody on everyday life. And so I pulled from all of these tools, and then I was like, how do we break it into an incredible, immersive, interactive learning experience? So that way people can come in as if it was a workshop, but not the long, boring workshops where you just listen to someone talking and you're falling asleep. So that way we like talk a little bit and then we go right into it. And so, what system reset means, by the way, think about a computer. When you hold the power button for 2 or more seconds, it resets back to baseline. And that's exactly what we're doing with our biosystem. Mind is the software, body is the hardware. And when you need to download new apps or new software, you connect to the internet on your phone or computer. Now, what we're doing, we're connecting to the inner net, the inner guidance, the inner clock. And,
love it.
People constantly ask me, what's the most important biohack? The most important biohack is to unhack every single biohack you've ever known, see what the inner guidance is telling you, and then introduce the biohacks again. So it doesn't come from this obsession over, sleep and this and data, because we live life that's meant to be fun. Now, the old patriarchal ways of learning and doing the guru style things was level 1, level 2, and 4-hour meditations and very regiment. And that's what a lot of our, that's where a lot of these people are coming from, including myself. I used to think that if it wasn't hard enough, I wasn't good enough, that like if it's not enough effort. But life is supposed to be effortless when we get rid of all these painful situations and when we get rid of all these painful thoughts and belief systems around us. And so what do we do in these events? We literally draw people into some of the most incredible locations, whatever it's jungle, ocean, with sun gazing, to churches, to castles. And essentially we bring people in there. It's usually 150 to 250 people, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the setting. And then we go into this group unity flow. And that's something that we measure, by the way, as well. We measure the group coherence. We measure people's brains before the event, after the event. We bring, technology like light therapy, red light, all of the cutting edge stuff that are in the biohacking. We bring it with us as well to help and validate and increase, for example, neuroplasticity, because it's all about these long lasting changes and identifying where it's at. And so we have a whole framework, that people go through. System reset is breath, dance, meditation, and we take people on a journey through these 4 steps of the journey through self-transformation. And we identify the problem, we clean the problem, like we get rid of it, we bring the new coding in, and then we integrate it and reassess it. And so that's without saying too much. It's just how that whole how much thinking goes into it.
Wow. Yeah. Fantastic. So obviously Brian Johnson in this post, and this is definitely how I felt as well. He said the environment was highly stimulating, and that stopped him from sort of getting good sleep. And this is actually, to be honest, it's not even just a biohacking problem. I know you're a parent, and I am as well. Most parents I know don't want to stay up until 6 o'clock in the morning anymore because they know that they're going to be up at 6:30 or 7 o'clock. So how do you sort of, I mean, what time do you start and finish, and what is the sort of the general vibe?
Yeah, so my schedule is quite rough because of the amount of travel. So it's
Mm.
always really, we're kind of like on and off. And so when we're on, sometimes I do like 2 weeks ago I did 15 events in 1 week. It was one festival,
Ooh.
one conference, and then our events on the
Mhm.
outside. So it was an extremely challenging schedule, but then right after I take a week off to be able to offset all
Yeah.
of this. And so I practice and preach something called the process of unhooking. And
Mm.
this is, by the way how I've been able to not burn out anymore, because I used to get burnout all the time.
Mm.
And what I do is I work in the cyclical way within the universe, because everything is cyclical, whatever we see in our
Mm.
situations, including the moon, right? Now, what I do is once per day, the first hour of the day, I spend just by myself. So this is that golden hour where I reassess, where am I? How am I doing? Claiming my energy, doing some breath work, meditation, sound. I do also visor light therapy and a few of the
Mm.
biohacks that we sell on our website. And that's my beginning of the day. So I can set the intention and I can take the charge of my choices and consequences to follow.
Mm.
Now, once a week, I take full day off. And this is digitally, physically. I detox from everything, as well as even family for the first half of the day, where I just go into nature and I reconnect to my true essence, to what I want to be, where I am. Look back into the week and look forward into the week. Then
Wow.
once a month, I spend 4 days off, and this is what I'm just coming out of. So after all of the hard effort, I took the family to Italy so we can restore. We went to hot springs, we went to nature, and I literally for 4 days I don't touch the cell phone. I put it in the pocket, and it is
Mm.
just time for me and also connect with my kids
Mm.
and family. And then I look at the past month and I look at the next month. What do I want to realize? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? And then once a year, I spend 10 days in darkness. And it's a total of 2 weeks completely off for integration as well. And it's on the, looking back in the year and looking forward in the year. What I
Mm.
found is when I follow this, it actually comes from female cycle, because for women, they have a very prominent cycle that kind of tells them when to be tired, when not to be tired. And when
Mm.
women are following that, it can create magic itself as well in their life. And but for men have cycle too. We just don't have that actual representation as women. And we all are working, when we work within those
Mm.
cyclical ways, then everything kind of follows. Everything seems easier. Everything feels not so rushed. The time, you own your time, that way.
Mm.
And in general, in my like daily basis, I always like to find time, for myself, then for the family. I call it the power hour. Once a day, I have a power hour with kids where I am just fully dedicated to them. And it seems not so much, right, on a big complex, but it's way more than being distracted by other things, around the day. I
Mm.
also like to drop in with my wife, so that way there's always a time and focus on us. And then every day there is a time for creativity, for passion. So
Mm.
something that I want to
Mm.
create, read, something new that I want to do. And those are kind of like the religious blocks that I like to have in between. And then for about 5 or 6 hours a day, it's just a focus work whenever I do emails and calls and beyond. But it's not 15 hours anymore, because I value balance and harmony and health more than
Mm.
just keep on chasing myself for nothing.
Yeah. So really what you're saying is, you talk about those cycles and the light and the dark. And if you want to be the party animal, even if it's sort of party animal that doesn't drink and is sort of partying during the day and everything else, you've got to have those periods where you sort of go inwards, and a period of reflection and a bit of introspection. And that is the best way to then get out there and be exciting. And that is compatible with being a cool biohacker, basically.
Well, yeah, because if you don't identify, like, what are your true heart's desires? Like, how
Mm.
often do we ask, like, what do I actually love? What are my dreams? And we do this in our events too. The last portion of the events is
Yeah.
we go back and we think about our last breath. If we have
Mm.
taken the last breath in our life and going backwards, what would make us satisfied? What would make us happy? Because we're always living somebody else's life. We're always living external, cell phone, emails, calls. And imagine, like, you can go 10 years with just work, 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 living everything but inside of you. And so these
Mm.
drop-ins allow you to come back to you, to ask yourself these questions.
Mm.
What is my true heart's desire? Who do I want to be when I grow up? But you can constantly evolve that. And
Mm.
when you start living within those framework, then you can start adding all of these tools and adding all of these things, but it doesn't define you. You don't become obsessed by it. You don't give it power out, because a lot of times we give power out to data and we give power out to science. But what about your inner science, your inner data? Everybody's different. There's not one person that is the same in a different time of our life. And so that's why the key to, happy, healthy, harmonious life is that you come back inward and you take the
Mm.
time for yourself to identify yourself and re-identify constantly, because we're always moving.
Yeah. And I think just one more question on that. And that is, I'm really fascinated with the sort of, you take a few hours or you take an hour every day, and then you take a few hours every week, and you take more every month, and so on. When you're asking yourself those questions, what happened in the past and where do I want to be sort of next week, for example, are you asking yourself formally, or are you setting an intention, then going out into the forest once a week for a few hours and then just letting the answers come? How do you actually do that process?
So I've spent quite a bit of time with the psychics in Brazil many years ago, and they taught me something very important, that we've got 5 physical senses, which we all know, which a lot of times get us in trouble. That is the instant gratification, right, that we seek. And then we've got 4 spiritual gifts that we all have, but we're not taught how to use them. And so these 4 gifts is the way that our highest essence communicates through us. So what's important to understand is that we've got the egoic mind, that is the monkey brain, the thoughts, the survival mechanism. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But if your egoic mind, just 95% of all the thoughts is a clutter, and 80% of our thoughts, based on study, is negative, are negative thoughts. So imagine that you have a mind that works against you instead of for you as a tool to succeed in this life. Then that's the first thing to identify, right? Now, the second thing to identify is this higher mind, or I like to call it the highest part of you that's already realized. Some people call it spirit, soul, energy. I like to call it the original source vibration that gives you life when you're born, and then will go back to oneness when we die. And that is what communicates with you with these 4 senses. Now, when you drop in, when you slow it down, you allow these senses to come out. And so it comes through, for example, inner hearing, which is the little whispers that we all have that maybe are telling you at night, turn off the TV, or start working out, quit drinking alcohol, or start learning how to sing, right? All of these the little subtle voices underneath the monkey brain. Now, what happens is, if we don't listen to that, for example, long enough time, maybe we get sick. Maybe there's a car crash. This is another extreme. But these voices have your back in a terms of what is the most ideal path for your lifetime while you're living in the physical form. Now, the way you strengthen this is you acknowledge it. So, for example, you say, "Thank you, I heard that. What you gonna do about that?" And to give you an example, I came in there as a busy entrepreneur. I wasn't a believer. This was really far out there concept for me at the time. And I just followed it to the T. So that's the one thing that I do right, is when I learn something, I follow it to see if it actually works until I have the experience. And what happened to me was the voice started getting louder and louder until it started integrating with the egoic mind. So that way the egoic mind is the action, right? That's what can book your flights, can transfer your bank account. But this higher mind is guiding the principles as to your highest path here on earth. Then you've got your inner feeling, which is, some people call it the empaths of the world. And this is when it comes to your feeling. To give you example, if you ever went to a room and there was a fight right before you in the room, something doesn't feel right. It's like in your body and you can't really put a picture, but it's through feeling. And a lot of the Reiki healing, a lot of the pranic healing comes from this empathic part of us to be able to feel and sense things before they happen. Then you've got your inner seeing, and I'll give you an example of visionaries. Let's say that you are a business person that has an idea of a new product that's 12 months down the road. You see the business plan, you create the business plan, you follow, those direction. And it could be also as simple as you have a dream. Some people can interpret their dreams. Other people can see colors. Other people, most of the time, it comes in lucid dreaming. We just get a drops of visions, that comes through our subconscious mind. Now, then you've got your inner knowing, and that is your intuition. And this is when you knew you shouldn't have gone to the party. You knew that person was cheating on you. It was in every bone of your body. You just knew it. And when you think, you don't know. When you know, you don't require to think. So that's the easiest way how to discern that. Now, all of us have these senses, but the way we strengthen them is just like a gym. So when you go into the woods, when you go take time for yourself, you start asking questions. You start talking to it as if it's your best friend. And when it gives you answer, you acknowledge it. So you say, thank you, I heard that. Or thank you, I felt that. Thank you, I saw that. And then what you're going to do about that is what builds the muscle. So think about it as like a high intensity interval training, right? You first receive the information. So you go out and you do that exercise, right? You ask the questions, but then you have the results that you got to marinate on, that you got to, connect to. And then you build this muscle of your intention and intuition through these times that you take time for yourself. Does that make sense? And then when you dedicate this time, it will naturally start becoming louder and stronger, and it will keep on coming to you even deeper. And again, I'm the example of this. I never thought this was possible, and I never really believed in any of this, but then I followed it. And now I can say I live this life of a direct connection to God, to source, whatever you call it. It's always there for everyone.
That's great. Yeah, my background's in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And, we talk a lot about the unconscious mind and giving the unconscious mind guides or suggestions or just asking it questions. And I find the best way is to ask the unconscious mind a question and then just let it come up with the answer overnight or whenever it might be. Just leave it there. When I'm trying to work, sometimes I try and force the process. So this morning, for example, got up really early and I was like, first half hour of my day, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm just going to think about the big things with my work, see what comes up. But nothing really came up because I was sort of trying to force the process a little bit too much. You know what I mean? It's sort of better when you just ask the question and then just come back to me when you're ready. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And maybe even ask a deeper question, like what would make me most happy about this situation? Because what's a lot of times what's important until we have a direct connection is asking more direct questions and also playing with different statements. So for example, creating a statement around the work, like I don't know, this decision X would make me feel really good by X and would really be an incredible because of X, right? Like something in that way. And then connect. How does it make you feel like? What thoughts are arising? What do you hear when you hear yourself say it or write it? So that way you can also verify it this way, just because there's no one good answer, right? We can express ourselves in millions and trillions of different ways, but only few of these ways will be the highest path to take, and that will be the only intention I would set, is that no matter what my path is, please allow me to be the instrument of love and light in the perfect amount needed for the greatest good of the whole, in a triple benefit. That's a lot of times that's my intention, and triple benefit because I want it to benefit me, benefit yourself, but also benefit the whole ecosystem that we live on, so it all is in balance all the time.
Very nice, very inspiring. Okay, that's given me a lot to think about. Let me ask you about this different question then. I know you are a self-respecting biohacker, And this is a good story that I was looking at this week. The most expensive Michelin-starred lasagna in America, possibly the world. It's $68 for a plate, and it is sprayed directly with canola oil, or rapeseed oil if in the UK, on every sheet of pasta. So basically, it's a restaurant in New York called Don Angie, and they've been proudly posting about how they spray canola oil on each sheet, and I guess it gives it an incredible flavor and makes it look lovely and everything else. And it's just quite an interesting story, because there's this app called Seed Oil Scout, which helps people find seed oil free restaurants, and they've been posting about this. But if the most expensive lasagna in the country uses seed oils, it's likely that there's a lot of seed oil out there. I wondered, is that something that you try and avoid on your travels? How do you deal with this? What is your diet like as a biohacker?
Yeah, so honestly, that's probably one of the hardest parts of travel, because I mean, when we go to biohacking conferences, it's easier because a lot of times the food is already, good, and it's selected by the biohackers. But in
Yeah.
between, sometimes it's really challenging. I mean, sometimes we don't have a room or time even to get groceries. Sometimes we are in the middle of nowhere. So a lot of times the rule of thumb is that I'd rather fast and take a break
Okay.
than not. Other times we're so drained that, I mean, we do something that we eat things that are not, of your highest good, and it happens. And what I do in those times, it's a simple song that I like to that have taught me from Darkroom, and I'll sing it. I literally have to say to myself, "It is what it is, so what?" and and it doesn't mean that I don't give a damn, right? Like, I genuinely care, but like, am I gonna obsess myself and like die in my head because I'm touching something that has canola oil? Or am I gonna take the neutrality path? It is what it is. Everything is energy. And so here's what I like to do. I like to charge the food with love. And so this is what we do with all of our families, like with kids before our meals. We simply go into our heart, we close our eyes, we put our hands on the food, and then we imagine just this beautiful golden light coming through our body and out our hands. And what it is just the creator substance. And we just simply, you can even imagine, because all the food eventually is water, right? Everything is made up of water, and everything is made up of energy. And we know, based on the science from the Japanese doctor, that water can carry information. So if you charge the molecules with the highest level of love you, I love you, I love you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much for this food, and then you set intention, and I do that sometimes. Recently, I had to eat Subway, and that was the only thing we could find, so it was like the least bad food out of all of the things, choices. And I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you, Subway. I intend that this meal is going to nourish me into my best possible ways. And anything that is not nourishing, it will simply transform back to love or back to creator. And anything that's left over will go into those people that need it the most. Something very simple intention. And everything is about coding, as you can imagine. Like, my whole life is, and all life is, how do we code things into perspective? Because without the code, without the thought, it doesn't have the power, right? Where intention goes, your energy flows. So if your intention is really from the highest, purest levels of love, how can it harm you? Because it is all love at the baseline, right? So that's kind of how I go around it, is that I first sing the song, it is what it is, that brings me into neutrality.
Yeah.
And then what do I do about it? I do the highest thought possible, and maybe take charcoal, right? I still, offset it with other supplements to make sure that it's okay.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I need to go to Don Angie in New York and ask the Michelin starred chef if they can make it with olive oil.
Yeah,
And then
or
we'll
with
still sing
love.
the song.
It's,
With love.
honestly,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's so messed up that, like, expensive things, like I always wondered about this. Like, for example, you buy a first class, right? And the whole first class is about like alcohol and like chemical food and like whatever
Yeah.
candies on some of the first
Yeah.
class. And I'm like, so you're just buying yourself a quicker death, basically, because like you're paying all this money, and it's the value of our life is so messed up on the mainstream level. It's like, it's really insane.
Yeah. I always think that walking through duty free, there's nothing in duty free that I want. It's just overpriced perfumes and chemicals and tobacco and alcohol and maybe some very expensive sunglasses. But even then, not interested.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, listen, I want to ask you about a biohacking review then. You mentioned that you've got some biohacks that you sort of you give to people on your site, and I know you're deep in the biohacking world. I've been asking all my guests who come on to review something that they've been using recently, or a biohack that they like. It could be anything. It could be a practice, a gadget, a toy, a piece of tech, a supplement, a different diet. What have you been trying out recently, or what have you been using that really works for you that you would like to tell people about?
Yeah, so I mean, I basically so it's ironic because I've created a store based on exactly what I use on a daily basis, and that's on our on our Noah Aeon site, and this is what we actually bring to all of our events as well, so people can use it and try it. But I'll give you an example. So right before this call, that was my morning routine, and I went into so first thing first, I took a methylene blue, and then I had I did a Sarah Thrive. Which is a brain gut red light. There's a lot of studies that show that the actual methylene blue it photomodulates, and so it accelerates its efficacy when you add light to it. Also, we don't have enough light, so right now it's really dark outside, or it's been like a week worth of no sun. And now at the same time, I have the red light. I also put on blue light. I actually did it right before you as well. I have it here. These are IO glasses. And essentially, this gives you for about 20 minutes the perfect amount of blue light you need to wake your body up. I weave off of caffeine, so I don't use caffeine anymore. I use only natural, energies and cellular energy as a form of fuel. And then I would go into a visor session, which is a light therapy that's right in front of your forehead. And I do my breath work with the light therapy and vibration. So I have this little Apollo Neuro gadget, which is incredible for your nervous system. And so what we do is we film content for all of these products as well. So like you can do red light with our meditations or breath work. You can do the light therapy in the same way. And then I also have a vibroacoustic at the house where I combine it with vibration. But
what's that?
Like a vibroacoustic bed. It's called In Harmony. And it's a vibroacoustic meditation pod. So instead of like the full bed, you actually have a seating pod. And this is basically my morning routine. So I combine like 5 different products that we have for the ultimate morning routine to have a VIP lane to your present moment, I like to call it. And it helps with neuroplasticity. It gives you the right amount of light if you are not exposed to sun. I also like to go on a grass in the morning, but I'll send you the different things maybe into the show notes just so it gives people example.
Please.
How
I was writing them down. I couldn't keep up with them all. What were the glasses that you just showed me? The sort of blue glasses.
So this is called the IO glasses, and you put them on just like this. And basically, it also has a really magical science behind it too, because it's a lot of people shit on blue light, right? But it's the time of the day and the kind of blue light. And so this basically determines, especially in the winter, right? Like if you're in the winter states, or like right now, it's really hard to get much light here. It helps you observe that and tells your circadian rhythm to basically kick in. And by the way, this is my #1 jet lag hack. Like I go into a new time zone, and first thing I do is put these glasses on, because it literally resets your nervous system, your circadian rhythm right there and then.
Really? Because I use the human charger, and funnily enough, I was talking about that last week on the podcast with Simland. But the human charger used to do a similar sort of thing for jet lag, shining the light into the ears. But you travel so much. I'm very interested in your opinion. So this is what we need for jet lag then.
Absolutely. So I do have a really extensive protocol for jet lag as well. I mean, from like EMF clothing to, you know, a strong red light, so that way it doesn't absorb the negative lights from the plane. I do glutathione, vitamin C. There's a whole regiment of just supplements. There's a lot of hydration with the right salts and minerals because we dehydrate. This is the only time I don't like using Bluetooth headphones, but the soundproofing part of it is important. You know, do it with the cord as much as possible. But you know, something you give and take, right? But especially the first thing when I wake up, you know, I go straight for again natural ways to wake the body up. And I have an example from Sydney. We were in Australia 2 months ago, and I took my team, right? And I'm like, I'm gonna take you guys through exactly my jet lag protocol, and you tell me if jet lag is a thing or not. And kid you not, I wish they could speak for themselves because I don't like, you know, sharing it from my words. But Sean, who was with me, he had zero jet lag. He could not believe that like this is possible. And we literally landed there at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. we had our first event for the next 5 days, every single night in a different city. So these things work when we use them right.
Oh my God, you did 5 cities in Australia in 5 nights.
Yep, and then straight back, and that was after our US tour.
Oh, no wonder you need 10 days in a dark room.
Yes, the harder you go, harder you rest.
Yeah. Okay, so well, listen, I've got to let you go. Do you really think I should do the dark room therapy?
Well, ask yourself, ask your inner guidance. Like, is it something that is going to benefit me for the long run? And is it going to bring the best of me, or am I going to face some crazy demons and I'll go to the other way? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I again, you know, ask those questions. There's no one that can ever tell for you because you know it all inside you.
Pavel, it's been brilliant to chat and connect. I really hope you come to Portugal at some point soon, but if not, I'm going to come and see you wherever you're doing one of your events. Where can people find out more about everything you're doing, the store that you've mentioned, the events and everything else?
Yeah, so what I would love to gift to your audience is a free on-demand library. So that way people can have live recording from the event. So at least you can try. There's over 80 hours worth of recording and anything from 3-minute morning resets all the way to 2-hour journeys. So depending on what your time commitment is. And that's on noaaon.com, noaaon.com. And then our Noah Aon official is our social media. And basically, you know, we do over 100 events a year. So we're constantly somewhere nearby your area if you want to join us. We also work privately with companies and festivals. We curate stages at festivals that are conscious stages with this type of programming. And those are just the different fun ways we get to express.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can vouch for it. It's really brilliant. And I have to say, all of my friends who are into what you do, they are utterly obsessed and they turn up everywhere. They love it. So look, it's really good to chat. And you've given me plenty of inspiration, not least with some of those biohacks there at the end, but also I'm going to be giving the unconscious mind some suggestions as well. So thanks for everything. Thanks for coming on Biohacking News as well.
Thank you so much. It was an honor.
There you go. Thanks, Pavel. And thank you, everyone, for watching the live stream. And this will be available as a podcast, as always. And we'll do the review episode a few days later. Thanks, everyone, and see you all soon.